Well, first off, Alessandra, thank you for coming on here today. Of
Thank you so much for having me.
course. So, yeah, getting this started and getting right into it, would you be able to give us a little bit about who you are and what you do here on the internet?
So, my name is Alessandra, like you said, and I'm a spiritual advisor and counselor, and I focus a lot on personal wellness. I had to grow up really young, and from all of those life lessons, I kind of found myself needing to give back, wanting to give back. I always knew that was my purpose was to give and to guide and to lead in some way. And throughout my life, that the form of that took a couple different forms until I finally settled into um, the awakening journey. Once I realized, oh wait, that's how I'm going to be. That's how I'm going to do this. So I did it in the form of theater, like healing arts and things like that. And then I found myself doing spiritual counseling and studying that. And I am now a certified psychic medium, a Reiki master teacher and healer, an ordained minister. And I do a lot of social media helping as much as I can to inspire people to become the best version of themselves. So transforming together from the inside out.
Awesome. What is the ministry that you are ordained in?
It's called the Order of Melchizedek, and it is an order that is it's non-denominational, but you find Melchizedek in the Old Testament. So people that are Jewish would recognize the name, people that are Christian would recognize the name, but it is non-denominational. Mhm.
Hmm. I pronounce it Melchizedek. You said Melchizedek?
Yeah, that's how I've heard that too. That's how the minister that ordained me,
Hmm.
that's how he pronounced it. But I've also heard that too. I've heard both.
Tomato, tomato.
Exactly. I'm literally just doing the way he did it, but I've heard both. I think, yeah, I'm sure they're both right.
Wow. Awesome. That's quite the resume.
Yeah, I did a lot during COVID. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in the order of Melchizedek. Would you be able to give us a little bit about what that is and who Melchizedek was?
So I believe he was first mentioned. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was first mentioned. I believe it was in Genesis, and he is the high priest. And throughout the order of high priests, Christians say that Jesus was the high priest of the high priest, but they all kind of come down from that lineage.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he's a biblical and I guess non-biblical figure, non-denominational figure.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What was his power? What did he try to impart on humanity?
I believe it was bread, but doing something with bread. I don't know a ton about him specifically, but I know a lot about the Gospels, the lost Gospels, and things like that. So the priest himself didn't talk so much about that particular figure, even though that's the order. I know it sounds a little odd, but he talked a lot about other Gospels that were lost and a lot
Hmm.
of the lost traditions throughout. Um, I guess the Hebrew traditions as well as in Christianity. So I don't know if you've heard of the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Thomas. So he was
Hmm.
basically focusing a lot on the the non-traditional aspects of Christianity, of Judaism, and of spirituality really in general, and taking out the humanity part of it. So the organizational part of religion
Hmm.
throughout history. So it wasn't necessarily he didn't focus so much on him specifically when
Yeah.
we had it was like a 2 week long intensive and we focused on him just a little bit, but we really focused a lot on the non-traditional scriptures, why they weren't in brought into the Bible, why they were left out, even left out of the Torah too, and the way a lot of the monotheistic religions really focus on the same thing, but at the end of the day, it's I guess the wording is different and the humanity of it all changes. The ego and humanity and the separation of church and state in the early thousands, I guess BC, AD, in those early years, before the year around, I think like 1500, 1700. And between then, the church and state separated. But before
Hmm.
that, we focused a lot on the meaning of spirituality versus the meaning of religion.
Hmm.
And that is what drove me to that denomination in particular, because I did do some research. And what I loved about that one was what I just said, was the way it brings all of the monotheistic religions together so that there's a oneness, there is a
Hmm.
oneness, yet it is not an I'm right, you're wrong. It's not, it has nothing to do with power. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with any of that. And even letting go of some of the new age stuff as well, that there is a grounded nature in being able to integrate both tradition and new topics, because he, along with other biblical and non-biblical figures, religious figures, I should say, throughout history, they were all non-traditional, so non-traditional that I got them killed, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
going through that was important to me, was having something that encaptured the love. I grew up Catholic, so I've nothing against any of that. I grew up I was taught by nuns whom I love, the St. Lucy Filippini nuns. I love them. Shout out to them.
Mhm.
But there does come a point where it was challenging to fully get on board with the entire I guess way of
Yeah.
thought,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of just went around the world word wise, so I'm so sorry.
No, I get it. Totally.
I'm
I
glad you
mean, you
followed.
just you outlined your path pretty much into true spirituality rather than religious dogma,
Yes,
right?
exactly. That's a much better way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally. Totally.
Now, would you be able to get into the difference that you resonated with in terms of what true spirituality is and what turned you off about this organized religion?
Yeah. Well, I think that is a very layered question because there's a lot to it, I'm
It's a big one.
sure.
I know.
Yes. But so let's start with the most obvious, right? The hypocrisies versus the Jesus loves everybody except gays, or Jesus loves everybody except this, or except when you do this, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. That
Hmm.
was the first thing that was like, okay, wait a minute. And as like a young child,
Yeah.
it didn't make sense to me. So that was always in the back of my mind, those types of things. Um, I also the search external of yourself, it's very external for power, like
Hmm.
um, grasping at something external from yourself, when in reality that beauty, that power, that divine nature lives within. It
Yeah.
lives and breathes within. It runs through your veins. It is an energetic life force energy. It is not a separate figure that is unattainable outside of yourself. They say things like, the Holy Spirit lives in you and things like that. And they're kind of, I guess that touches on the energy aspect of it coming from within, but it didn't make enough sense to me, because at the same time, even though the Holy Spirit lives within, it didn't make sense to me why, when you're feeling powerless, they encourage you to reach external from yourself. Or even the whole priesthood, God bless them, is very corrupt. The religious, um, I just don't agree. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah.
They're preaching the Ten Commandments and things along those lines, but behind closed doors, look at what they're doing. Why are
Hmm.
they doing that? I personally think they've completely missed the point. They've
Yeah.
completely missed Jesus's point. Christ is my guru. I love him to death. He's my North Star. I follow the way he teaches. I love his teachings. But he didn't want us to become like slaves to him, if that makes any sense. And there are certain mindsets. I think there's a certain section of people in all religions, all religions, all philosophies. There's a sector of people that are just very, very, very. Um, it's a lot. It's very extreme, to the
Yeah.
point where you've just completely missed the point. And even those that aren't extreme, they're just not aware, because it's taught throughout the years, they're not aware how much power comes from within them and how we are really a co-creator with God. We're not just, sitting in our living room praying for something to happen, going to work, having an attitude, coming back home, praying again, hoping it happens. And if it doesn't happen, I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's that lifestyle of being quote unquote asleep, and forgive them for they know not what they do. That they don't have the capacity to know yet. They don't know. They weren't taught it. They weren't exposed to the fact that they are limitless. They are here to thrive. You are here to thrive. It's so much more than just survival. And I think that a lot of these major religions, as beautiful as they are, once you add the human piece to it, the organizational piece to it, you lose so much of what these preachers were trying to say.
Yeah. Amen. Powerful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the big difference. Are you searching for some kind of salvation or power on the outside of yourself to some
right.
kind of false idol, or
Hmm.
are you finding it within?
Hmm.
It's that simple. And I
Yes.
think that's the difference between dogma and real spirituality. If you even want to call it spirituality, you don't have to. That's also a muddied term. But for
Hmm.
lack of a better word, real spirituality is just being able to find that God-given power within to co-create your life and your whole world, essentially.
Right. Yeah, and just remembering who you are.
That's
You're
it.
not here by accident.
Hmm.
You are here for a reason. Every single one of you are here for a reason, and it is so important to remember that some of these religions, it makes it so, it's so constricting. It is so constricting where if you if okay, so I you hear the term cafeteria Catholic, where you kind of pick and choose what you believe in. You get judged for that. Meanwhile, they're saying Jesus did not judge. So which one is it? Which one is it? Like, are you going to be curious and say, what led you to that conclusion? Or are you just, I mean, there are so many people every single day on so many of my posts that, that's kind of comes with this path. Of course,
Yeah.
when you're walking in the light, it does attract a lot of shadow.
Yeah.
But there's all of those people that I call them the Jesus police. They're the people who really think that, they're fighting for Christ, when in reality, Christ never enlisted them to do that. He never hired them for that. They're just
Hmm.
going around judging, when in reality, they're doing the opposite of what Christ was actually trying to say. So I think that there's an awareness that humanity is slowly waking up to. And I use the term spirituality because I don't really know what else to call the unseen
Mm.
besides spirit, and that way of life. But yes, it is very muddy for I think those same reasons, is that there's so many, everybody has a personal perception of what spirituality is. And because of that, it means something a little different to everybody. So if you're using it in a way that someone else doesn't resonate with, you're all of a sudden, there's going to be a clash immediately as well. So I think it really depends on the intention behind the words that you intention is everything. Behind the
Hmm.
words you use, behind the actions you take, and that's the same thing even with I find we miss, not to get into like politics and stuff, but being able to like listen and hear each other, that we are so much more alike than we are different. And yes, there are things where there is seemingly you may be extremely passionate about one way of life, but there's a reason that they see it a certain way. That is your brother or sister. So don't attack them like a barracuda. Do you know what I mean? Become curious, listen to them, see why they feel that. You don't have to agree even still, but there is that curiosity and that intention behind what they're saying. Whether
Yes.
they're executing it in the right way or not is different, but I highly doubt the vast majority of these people really want society to collapse. Do you know what I mean? Like we
Hmm.
all want the same thing, but the way of getting there is different for each person. And there is we're so much more alike than we are different. It's the same with different religions and spirituality. is a sense of judgment when it from one religion to another, and coming from a place that was, I was literally taught by nuns. I'm coming from that place, which was very, very, very structured, very, 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 you know, immersed in that dogma. It makes you extra sensitive to it, because there's also that inner child piece that needs to come full circle and become, all right, it's okay. You believe what you need to believe. It's a whole thing, and I think it's the same thing with politics. It's an internal transformative journey.
Yeah. That's part of the internal journey is being able to see other people are a part of yourself, literally
Yeah.
seeing each other as brothers and sisters
Mhm.
and recognizing that, like you said, even though they might not have went about it in the right way, their intention might be pure.
Right.
And that's what matters. If you can see that, and I think that comes along with the internal journey, is like understanding other people's intentions and
Yes.
circumstances and situations, right? That kind of comes intuitively. But
Hmm.
that's a huge part of it is like empowerment in yourself and in your own empowerment, finding some kind of understanding, forgiving them for they don't know.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge part of the journey, I feel, is to forgive. Forgive others,
Yes.
you know?
Right. The main things that have been taught by these incredibly wise souls that have come before us are usually the main things that get glossed over. The
Hmm.
main thing that Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, all of the Muhammad, all of these people have taught was all about love and forgiveness, was
That's
all
it.
about seeing people's intention. That's the
Yeah.
main thing that you hear from. Meanwhile, all of those people that claim to be a part of whatever path they're on, they're all judging each other.
Mm.
You know, Muhammad didn't say don't judge, but you can if it's not a part of our traditions. Jesus didn't say if it's not a part of Christianity, or at that time, because Christianity didn't exist yet, if it doesn't align with what I am preaching, they're wrong. Like he never said that from my knowledge. And I've studied
Mhm.
it since I was in kindergarten. I've been in Catholic school since I was very little. So I've really, really, really done a job. I know the Bible very well, and that's part of what led me to where I am.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I believe all pure sages and saints are saying the same thing. All
Totally.
religions are really all saying the same thing, and it's what
Mhm.
we're talking about here now. It's pretty simple. Just love thy neighbor, really, when it
Yes,
comes down to it.
yes,
Love yourself and love thy
right,
neighbor. It's the same
right,
thing.
right. I'm going to tell a brief story if you don't mind.
Please do.
My grandfather's best friend from kindergarten, we're going to call him Frank. And Frank, my uncle Frank, was going to doing like a father son day with his son and going skiing. And his 7 year old daughter, his wife, and his mother in law were going to go shopping that day. So the three girls get in the car, they're going shopping, and on their way home, they get hit by a drunk driver, and all three of them die. All three of them. His family got wiped out in like 6 minutes. And my uncle Frank like just passed away in 2021. So I grew up with him. And would tell the story of the day he decided to go into the hospital room and look at the drunk driver dead in the eye. And he looked at them and he said, I forgive you.
Wow.
And he genuinely did. And his family was completely wiped out within just a couple of minutes. They were all dead upon arrival. It was a horrible accident. And
Mm.
that story has always so deeply inspired me that if you are able to do something like that, why can't you see the good in your neighbor that's sitting right next to you, that hasn't necessarily thrown any shots at you and just might be saying something that you disagree with? It's wild. It's wild to me. And those are the types of stories that have shaped me, because you see, again, that's what Jesus meant. That's what he meant.
Hmm.
And then you look at, and then over here, it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make sense. Tearing people down because they don't agree with you, etc.
Yeah.
It's just a very powerful concept. And I don't think people understand the gravity of it until they have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's one thing to say it
Mhm.
in theory, but then
Right,
it's another thing
exactly.
to actually forgive in your being, to embody.
Yes, the embodiment.
Yeah.
Totally.
And life will throw you challenges, maybe not to that extent. That
Mhm.
is a very profound extent, but in all our own situations, I feel life will throw you these opportunities to forgive or not forgive.
Mhm.
It's almost like a test.
Totally.
Like, you gonna pass
Yes.
this test or not?
Right, right. And he did get remarried, you know, like it did work out, you know, it always, so long as you keep your true north and you follow love and you trust the process, it may be excruciating. I had a very abusive upbringing. Like, it's not easy. And you know, it's not easy, these tests, these trials, these events that shape you. But at the end of the day, he did get remarried. He did have two more children that he wouldn't have had otherwise. And, you know, they're now my two aunts. I call them my two aunts. And we wouldn't know them otherwise. He has grandchildren that he wouldn't have otherwise. And he still honors, you know, the family that passed.
Mm,
And he's now with them. And at his, you know, funeral, we said that it was like a full circle moment and it was beautiful. But he really did live his life in that embodiment. And I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I did want to, you know, I thought it was important to not leave it at he lost his family, to show the journey and that there is a journey. It is you have to enjoy the journey because it's not a destination. It's not, let me get married, let me have kids, let me buy a house, let me like grandkids, whatever like that. It is a journey and it is a fluid journey and it is not linear. This
mm,
journey is not linear. You could get married and have kids and have to start over again. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense, but that is the plan. And with God at your center, you know you can't fail. So no matter what happens, you know that so long as I embody that love, so long as I follow that light and follow that authenticity, that doesn't mean it has to be easy, but you still follow. That's all you have to do. God is not asking for anything more than just follow,
mm,
follow that internal light, that internal love. You don't have to figure out how you're going to get there. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that great? That's so
yeah,
nice that we don't have to figure out how, even though
yeah,
we want to figure out how because it makes us feel more safe. We don't have to. It's already
mm-mm.
figured out. And he's just asking that we walk. We take the walk.
Yep. Surrender and have faith.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just described faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my confirmation name, oddly enough.
That's your confirmation name, you said? Faith?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
I've grown up with that because of the upbringing I had. That
Mm,
I just had to grow up really young, right? So because I had to grow up young, I always had faith as my epicenter, as my North Star. And from very young, like very so young that I look back now and it's like, wow, that's pretty mature for an 8 or 9 year old. That's like very mature.
mm,
So yeah, yeah,
hmm. I think that's where the spiritual path ultimately leads to. It's faith and surrender
yes,
and a power that's way greater than us. And
100%.
we're at the whim of it. And you're either with it or against it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So all paths, I think all paths lead to that. It's like
I
give
agree.
up your humanly will a little
Hmm.
bit and float downstream in the stream of God, the river of God. And all will be taken care of. That's the thing. It's like you get taken care of, even though it might not seem like it in the moment. It all works out and it's all worth it, I feel.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. When you find your life comes full circle, it is one of the most extraordinary moments I find that there are moments where it's just, you know, oh, my life. But then I realize that what I learned so early on, and in that time when you know, seemingly everybody else in, so shit hit the fan with me when I was like 9, 10, 11. with my
Hmm.
family. My
Hmm.
father left, etc. But my mom is like a superwoman, so she was always a beacon of light for me. And my mom's family, thank God I had them, they always helped me realign with that true north. So I am very blessed that I had anyone. Some people have like completely no one. So I am extraordinarily blessed. But it is still a choice. Whether you have them or not, it is still a choice. And um, growing up really young, I realized that flow, if you're against that flow, life is going to be so much harder, so much harder.
Hmm.
And rather than just allowing it to happen, learning from it as it goes. And now I'm helping other people going through things that I went through. And it is the most beautiful thing. Like the other day, I randomly just got teary about it. I just felt, I was like, this is so beautiful. How did I end up here? This is amazing. And some days I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's my life. But then other days it just hits different. And it just, that gratitude of, wow, I'm so glad I hung on to my true north. I am so glad I stayed on that path. Like you're saying, the river of God. I'm so glad that I allowed myself to flow because I can only imagine if this is where I am now, where I'm going to be in several years from now.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It really is. And it's not just us talking about it here now for some entertainment. I truly feel it. I know you feel it. And I don't think there's any other way to live.
No, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, there really
Right?
isn't. Or else you're not really living.
Mm,
It's not,
yeah,
you're not living.
you're just suffering.
Right. You're just suffering and you're just kind of surviving. It's like,
Hmm.
let me wake up, if I have time, I can work out maybe, but I really got to get to the office. I'm exhausted. Come home. Oh my goodness, I'm not even in a great relationship at home. You know what I mean? Like some of these, so many people are getting married to settle. So many people are getting married out of obligation. Some people are just drifting apart, but their lives are crumbling, but they're still going. Like they're not doing anything differently. They're just still kind of going through the motions as their life is morphing and changing. And if, things at home work out, amen. But if not, there's a reason why people get to 50, 60, 70, 80, and they're grumpy and they don't believe in the goodness in life. It's
Yeah.
because life has proven to not work out for them, but they weren't in alignment for it to work out. So it was never going to work out. It's not just going to magically work out. You have to stand up, be a co creator. So if you're not happy with your life at home, either work on the marriage, don't avoid it, or do something about it. Maybe a break, or maybe a separation, or maybe, I don't know, couples counseling, something. It's same with your job. If you're not happy with your job, like going into, I was in a very privileged place where I was able to live at home when starting my business. Okay. So financially, it helped. But if you're able to do something on the side and allow that to grow into something that's a passion project for you, God is not going to keep the abundance from you if you're doing your life's purpose. Your life's purpose equals abundance. And abundance is not just money, abundance is also a way of life, it's a mindset. So even if practically you have to be doing two things at the same time, if you don't like your job, if you don't like your way of life, do something on the side until it grows. Keep feeding it that life force energy, see where it goes, and then you can quit your job. Just keep going. Maybe write a book or an ebook or do something on the side, something that gets your passions going again, that lights you up again. People just kind of go through that survival mode. But I also think that that's an ancestral energy that comes
Hmm.
down through the lineage. Like we're taught to wake up early, go to bed semi early so that you can wake up super early again the next day. And, they all had to go out in the field and survive every day, right? They had to go do whatever farmer stuff they're doing, like gather for the winter because God forbid everyone's going to freeze to death in the winter. There's no heat. Like they really did not have it great.
Hmm.
But we don't have to live like that anymore. Like we're past, we don't have to live like that anymore. And some people live like that anyway. And that's not saying that things aren't insanely expensive. Like that's not what I'm saying. It's a mindset. It's a mindset is really what I'm saying.
Exactly. And it's the mindset that goes from surviving into thriving,
Totally.
right? Do you just want
Yes.
to do you want to be just something that is just here, barely here, just hanging on? Or do you really want to live in abundance and with power, true power,
Mhm.
like real power
Yeah.
in your embodiment as a human being? And that all starts in the mind, as you said. It's all mindset. It's all this, it's all energy. And yeah, it's really just about, I think to me, it's like breaking the cycle, breaking that ancestral cycle and sowing new cycles in your life, new rituals.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's also intuitive. Like, do you feel as though this is all through intuitive discernment? Like, um, living in one's purpose and passion is just something that goes beyond thinking and rationale and
Oh,
logic and
yeah.
just something that is just like a higher intelligence, the higher self, you could say.
Yes. Yes. It almost, I don't know how else to describe it besides describing it as like an energetic DNA, where it feels
Mm,
like you're already like when you're born, your orientation is already in that direction, but you have to now take the steps to get there. But like energetically, it's almost like in the cells of your being. It's who you are.
yeah.
That calling. And that calling, even if people, I have clients all the time say, well, I don't really have any passions. It's like, well, that doesn't mean you don't have a calling. That doesn't mean you don't have a life purpose. That could also just mean you haven't found the passion yet
Hmm.
for you. Um, but also, even if you can identify one small thing that you would like to see change in the world, one small thing. And that small thing, like for instance, that small thing for me was helping people become unstuck so that they can chase their dreams. And because for a long time I was stuck. So that was something that I had to learn how to undo really early on and teaching other people how to do it. And a lot of my clients are a lot older than me. So it was proving to be wait a minute, this wasn't happening to me. This was actually happening for me as it was happening. When I was realizing, wait a minute, so many of these people are learning this so much later. This was all so much more purposeful than it felt like as it was happening. Right. And when you start realizing all of those things, you start saying, okay, wait a minute. This is something I wish more people did. How can I help people? And I honestly started out just by talking to people in my daily life. Like friends would come up to me and speak, and I would find myself just naturally channeling
Hmm.
and spirit speaking through me, and it could even just be a set of 4 words that they needed to hear. They've shifted so long as they decide to keep moving in that direction. And we all have that power. This is not like a you and me thing. Like we all have that power to say the right thing to somebody to help them shift, to help them move. They do have to make that decision to do it, of course. But that purpose is so much more easily founded when you are able to realize what it is that you have accomplished and what it is you would like to see added into the world. And I wanted to see more conscious and intentional people. And that's where I started. That's where I started. And that's what started the spiritual counseling for me.
Mm, yeah. Do you believe in one way or the other? We all have this power. Yes, as you said, we all have
Mhm.
this ability to tap in and live on this wavelength. And then living on this wavelength is in one way or the other being of service.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So I teach spiritual development classes and I start from the beginner level and I go all the way up to advanced. I can teach all of them and I will certify you as well. And if you want, it's not, the certification is more just for it's more of it's not like that doesn't mean you have the power or you don't. Like that's not what it means. It's
Hmm.
really there just for some sort of structure for you. I know for me it helped structurally. It was more of an internal thing more than an external thing.
Hmm.
But if you would like to follow those classes, you'll realize, wait a minute, like some of the people that have joined, I actually advertise the beginners classes. Anyone can show up. Anyone. Anyone that is interested in learning how to tap into their intuition, because we all have intuition. Every last one of us. But some of us really stink at listening to it. Like some of us are just not connected at all. the amount of, I mean, I think about like the people that are really aligned with shadow, really aligned with greed, really aligned with lust, really aligned with like, the seven deadly sins, quote unquote, the
Yeah.
stuff that is really heavy, the really lower dimensional stuff, they're not going to be able to hear their intuition
Hmm.
the same way we are. Or I'm actually getting a download, or they do listen to their intuition, but they're so psychic, but consciously aligned with things that feed the ego. So think about all the people that they know how to manipulate energy. They're not dumb. They know how to manipulate the energy. There are people out there like that.
Hmm.
And that's almost like that's worse than the people that are just unawakened, right? The people that are just unawakened, forgive them for they know not what they do. But then
Yeah.
there are people lower than that like to feed off of a lot of more of the shadows because they know the more they feed the shadows, the more instant gratification they're going to get. Like
Hmm.
think certain celebrities, certain high ranked people that have gotten to where they are through extremely horrible means, things like that. But
That's
we
dark
do
magic.
all have it exactly, and that does exist. And that's why that came through is because it is the new age is very like love, light, and it's like no, like you have to go through the shadows, honey. Like you got to walk through the shadows of life. You got to realize that there is an energetic war constantly happening.
Yeah.
There's an energetic battle constantly happening. This is not all just love and light. If you want to keep yourself aligned with love and light, that's great. But to think there is almost like a toxic positivity sometimes when it comes to this field as well. So yes, to answer that question, I completely went all over the place. But yes, we all have the ability and it can all be nurtured. I do believe that some people naturally have it's just easier to access than others. Some it's so easy to access that they don't even realize what's happening to them. And then other people, once you start to tap into the intuition part of it, you realize you start isolating each clear sense. So, wait a minute, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What do I all of a sudden just know out of nowhere? That download. It's really important to isolate the way each one of those feels because each one is a message. And once
Mm.
you realize how alive spirit is. Like they talk to you in real time. It's incredible. It's amazing. I talk to my spirit team all the time. And for instance, some of my signs, the number 27 is huge for me. Their butterflies are big for me. So for instance, I sometimes in the car, I'm just like, hey, spirit, how are you? And literally out of the corner of my eye, as I'm saying that, I pass a house that's number 27, or I
Mhm.
see like a flag with a butterfly as I'm saying that. So they respond to you. Like they're so alive. Spirit is so beautifully alive. And so are your loved ones that have passed on. And that is another aspect of my work that I love to focus on as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. It's powerful stuff for sure. It's all there. It's all accessible for each and every one of us to tap into spirit. And I do believe there are different flavors of spirit in all of our own karma and circumstances for sure.
Mhm.
But it does, I think, have to do with synchronicity and serendipity in that way. Like the way
Mhm.
that it communicates to you is just through circumstances and situations that are just like, oh, that can't be a coincidence.
God is too brilliant for coincidences. It's,
That's good.
the world is the universe is too purposeful for
Mm,
coincidences. Even if it's such a small energy alignment that like you can't even figure out what the coincidence is, there's an energy reason
hmm.
as to how that's happening.
Yeah, stuff just lines up.
Yeah, for sure.
Makes sense
Definitely.
because if you approach with the intention of alignment, you align yourself mentally, then you
Hmm.
will notice outwardly things will align as above, so below. It's all one.
Right. Yes, yes. That is that is so true. And I
Yeah.
do believe that it is our birthright to be able to communicate from where we came from. And when people realize, God doesn't just like kick us down here with it just so happened we were conceived and we're just so happened the one that that's here. It was by
Mhm.
accident,
Well,
and
that's a popular
good luck,
paradigm.
right? Yeah, yeah. It's like good luck. There's no way to communicate with us. You're on your own. That's
Yeah.
like no, that's not what happens. Life is
Mm-mm.
too purposeful for that.
Mm.
And like for instance, once you realize who you are, you're one of them. You're just in a
Yeah.
body.
Hmm.
Remember who you are. You don't say we don't say I am a body. We say I have a body.
Hmm.
So who's I? I is our essence. I is our soul. That is who we truly are inside. And the quicker we're able to align with that and realize that and embody that, the more magical life actually becomes. It becomes so much less mundane.
Yeah.
Life is so beautiful, even through all of the hardship. It really is so beautiful, but you have to be in alignment to see that.
Hmm. You have to. Yeah, truly, everything becomes just purposeful, as you said.
Mhm.
Perfect and purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because that's the popular culture is that none of this means anything. Nihilism, cynicism.
Yes.
We're all here on accident. Somehow it's just a perfect arrangement of atoms that
Right. Right.
got in some
Yes.
kind of chemical composition that created the human. That's so 180
It's
to
so
what we're talking about.
specific. Yeah. Like that's such a specific set of circumstances that it doesn't logically, to me, and I actually studied neuroscience in college. So I am very, I do consider 100% the scientific aspect of things. And I'm very intrigued by quantum physics. I'm very intrigued by the way the brain processes energy in the body, the way the body holds energy. And they're really, I personally think it makes creation makes so much more sense with spirituality involved than without it. It
Yeah.
seems so odd to me personally without it. It
Yeah.
feels like there's a massive piece of it missing.
And the piece is order. How this is all order because science in the materialistic realm is just everything is chaos and this is just some kind of accident. That doesn't make any sense. Like there's so much order that one can perceive, and that order is essentially spirit or God that gave
Yes.
birth to us and every this world out of the chaos, out of the disorder. That's the missing puzzle piece, it seems, in the scientific paradigm. And I know too, I used to be in that. I used to somehow believe everything was just an accident. And now I feel much more fulfilled, much more, just stuff makes more sense with still holding and revering science, but also recognizing the power of God. That is a refined human being, like recognizing the magic, but also at the same time the logic.
The balance, the divine balance. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like the yin and yang, 100%.
Yeah. When that comes together, it makes so much more sense. Everything in your life makes so much more sense. And yeah, things just seem to happen for you. Because if you're just stuck in that everything is an accident mindset, it could seem like this is hell.
Oh my
You're in
goodness.
you're in prison, right? This is some kind of weird accident. Like, how did I get here?
I believe that's what hell is. I believe that's what
Yeah,
hell is. It's like the
right?
absence of God, faith, love. So if you're
Or
not in
purpose.
alignment with that, you're kind of, yes, exactly. You're kind of creating your own hell in the 3D reality
Mm,
when it doesn't have to be like that.
no, not at all.
Mhm.
Ultimately, though, I think the hell is what paves way for heaven. It's like when you can't stand it anymore, you give it all up to God, right? Like
Yes.
suffering is what paves the way for us to find God in one way or the other.
Yes.
You just got to get out of your own way, and you're gonna
Yes.
keep going on the hamster wheel until you get the message.
Yeah. It's like that dark night of the soul concept.
Yeah.
For sure. I know for so many of my clients that end up watching this, they're probably going to giggle because we go over it all the time. Like if you don't choose to move, even if it's like a little shimmy towards where you feel a push to, God is going to put you in a corner, man. Like he is going to trap you in that corner, and it is going to get, the pressure is going to get higher and higher and higher and
Hmm.
higher. And either you either plunge down into the depths of whatever, or
Mm,
you rise.
that's it.
And a lot of people do decide to rise, but there are a lot of people that also decide to procrastinate that in that corner as long as possible, as long as humanly possible.
Mm,
And it creates an environment of such just a horrible way of life. Like
yeah.
you're not pleased with any part of your life, as within, so without. So your life is going to be a reflection of how you're feeling inside. So it can't be looking too good.
Mm,
And then other people, they cling to the black magic and they really do go downwards. But I have to say, I am noticing over the course of, and I don't know if it's just because I'm in my 20s and younger and hopeful, but I do believe that we are constantly evolving humanity, and I do see and feel more of an awakened quality to the collective within the last 20 years. I really do, and it is as honestly, especially within the last like 5 to 10 years,
wow.
there was like a massive shift in consciousness,
Hmm.
massive timeline shift. I actually think there were multiple timeline shifts, and that to me is very hopeful when realizing that that is the world. So, like, those are the people that you're going to see at checkout in the grocery store. Those are the same people you're going to see at the car wash or at work, or those are the same people you're going to run into. So, when the collective uplifts, it creates a much better way of life for everyone involved. Those are the people that you might go on a blind date with. Maybe it doesn't work out, but at least it's not toxic. Do you know what I mean? At
Hmm.
the way of life, the pool of people that you're dealing with, it becomes a little lighter. And it's so important. It's 327 as I'm saying that. So Spirit's confirming that 27 is my number. Hi, guys. So it's just so important to acknowledge the progress, not be like, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. Oh my God, the world has gone to shit. The world sucks. How many times have we heard that recently? And I honestly want to
Every
bang my
day.
head on, literally, I want to bang my head on the wall every time I hear that. God bless them. God
Mhm.
bless them, because their life must be rough. But honestly, it's not that. I mean, okay, 2,000 years ago, think about how barbaric we were to each other in comparison to the way we are now. Like we're moving. We're
Yeah.
on the right track.
Oh yeah.
Clearly there we have our faults. Clearly there's a lot to clean up. That is obvious. That's a given, because there's never not going to be that in our lifetimes. So you might as well accept the fact that, yeah, we're going to have to clean up a couple things, but we have come far as a collective. We're doing pretty well. And in the grand scheme of things, I think, personally. But again, that is also that divine balance with not overlooking the things that we do need, not becoming satisfied and being like, okay, that was good. Awesome. No, you're proud of the work you've done, but you're not satisfied with it. So you keep chipping away at it, but you acknowledge what has been done. There is that divine balance, that yin and yang energy again.
Hmm. Well said, Alessandra. Yes. These are the times I like to say. The times that we are in are very momentous.
Mm-hmm.
Something very peculiar about these times.
Completely agree.
If we were born many, many different incarnations throughout the past,
Mm-hmm.
this one is very unique,
It is. I
right?
agree. It feels it. Yes.
And I don't think we're biased in that regard. This one, if you can just study history a little bit, you'll see is unlike anything that has ever happened. And it
Yeah.
really just comes down to the technology that we have. Like, look at what we're doing right now. What is this? What
Mm-hmm.
this is magic. We live in
Yes.
magical times,
Truly. Truly.
right? And the
Yes.
fact that we're recording this and then somebody's gonna listen to it in the future, it's like, what? We take it for
Right.
granted,
And it's
but
evergreen, right? So it's not like people are just listening to a talk and they hope that they can remember and they take some notes. It's like if they want to refer back to it, that they can. And the options are so much more limitless.
mm,
That theme of being unlimited and rejecting limited consciousness and a limited way of thinking and a limited mindset, because we really are so much more unlimited than we have been made to feel. And that is a whole other concept that I do purposefully think that the people above us hierarchically, not literally,
mm,
in terms of worth, um, hierarchically, so politically, religiously, whatever that means to the 3D, um, they're not as dumb as they claimed. Like they want us asleep.
Mm,
I'm sure of that. They do. They don't want us to wake up because that means they can't keep indulging in those seven deadly sins. They can't keep indulging the way that they have when, if we're all of a sudden all awake to it. Look at all of the evil that's come to light within the last couple of years alone because of social media, like because of the way we're able to process information.
mm,
We're awakening. We really are. And what's really interesting is yes, 2020 was the pandemic or the main part of when it started. But it's also very interesting in terms of numerology that 2020 is also 2020 vision. And there is an
right?
energy of us like clearing the vision just
Yeah.
numerically, the energy of it. Like, where you're so right. Like, this is so different. We are on a fast track to I don't even think there is no destination, but we are on a fast track towards more of an awakened consciousness. That's for sure.
Hmm. Yep. The pressure is building, as you said.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
if you're
It is.
just looking at it at a surface level, it could be like, oh, it's so bleak. Why is this all
Mm-hmm.
happening? But
Yes,
if you have enough knowing in your
right.
mind and your heart, you'll see that it's all for some reason. And it's actually all for our betterment. It's all for our growth.
Yes,
That we all
ultimately.
realize who we actually are.
Yes. Yep,
Mm,
I completely agree with you.
yeah. That's the big switch is we see that all of this is for us.
Yes, people like
Literally
you,
everything.
me, and anyone that's watching this is awakened enough to realize that much. Anyone that's going to come across this video is awakened enough to realize that this is it is imperative that you are here right now on this planet. It is absolutely essential that you continue your awakening because you have been chosen to awaken. Not everybody gets the opportunity to have the strength to actually follow that awakening. A lot of people just they're wrapped up in the current of ancestral energies of just survival. But if you are awakened, your soul has been through enough where it gives you that strength and that extra oomph to be able to see more clearly. Please don't take that for granted. Anyone watching this, please do not take that for granted. That is a gift, and you are here for a reason. And you are a key reason as to why the collective is rising.
Mm,
So people like you, people like me, anyone watching this, it's 333 as I'm saying that. This is so funny. Spirit is so present.
mm,
Thanks, guys. They're very proud of us, honestly. Um, and we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. And we answer the call. We should be proud of ourselves too.
mm. Amen. Yeah. I think that's a good note to wrap this up at, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't take it for granted. Don't take these times for granted. Don't take your own awakening, what you know for granted.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's all very important. I think there's a sense of urgency in the
Yeah.
times that we're in the incarnation that you're in the in what you know, and what we know. I feel urgency.
Yes, me too. Me too. Like there's a sense to rise and come together.
Mm, yeah. Find the others. That's what I say.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Totally. And this podcast is going to help that. Thank you
for
so much
sure.
for having me. I so appreciate being here.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And thanks for reminding me, at least, if nobody else got the message. I got the message today. So, yeah, thank you, Alessandra. I really appreciate you coming on here. I think this was an awesome talk. You have very vibrant, very powerful energy. So keep up the good work.
Thank
And that's
you.
it. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Do you
so
have
much.
anything else you want to say, though, before we wrap this up?
Um, well, I spoke to the collective a lot randomly throughout this.
Hmm.
But if you would like to follow me on Instagram, My handle is Alessandra.spiritual advisor. And this is the type of thing that we talk about. So you can expect to see a lot of that on that page on Instagram. Yep.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll link everything of yours down in the
Perfect.
description for people to
Awesome.
find you. But keep up the good work. I wish you all the best.
Thank
And
you,
that's
you too.
it. Much love. Peace and love, everybody. Goodbye.